Hello, my pretties. It's Candice, and welcome back to Pretty Intentional, the podcast where beauty, lifestyle, and personal growth meet honesty, self reflection, and real life. Last week, we talked about not letting anger turn into bitterness. This week, I want to talk about not letting adversity turn into identity. And this came directly from a conversation in one of my group chats. We were talking about the stress of dealing with that one friend that just always got some shit going on with them. Like their life is constantly falling apart. They're always down bad. It's one thing after another. And sometimes it makes you not even want to answer the phone when they call or text. Like you have a visceral reaction to their name popping up in your phone. You're like, girl, what now? And one of us half jokingly, half seriously said, you asked like, girl, why does God hate you? And we laughed. But at the same time, it sat with me because if you know me, I joke all the time that I'm one of God's favorites. And I say that with confidence, with faith, and with gratitude. But if I'm being honest, there have also been moments in my life where I've quietly wondered, like, okay, God, are we good? Because I have experienced a lot. Moments where it felt like I had just regained my footing and something else knocked me back down. And when you stack enough of those moments on top of each other, even the strongest faith can start to ask questions, not in rebellion, but in confusion. There have been seasons where I thought, am I missing something? Is this punishment? Why does it feel like I'm always rebuilding? I shared that with my friends that sometimes I feel like I might be that friend that's always down bad and woe is me because I've been through so much. I always have a testimony and a story about something that happened, and they said, nah, that's not you because you don't sit in it. You're able to motivate, inspire, and move on. And while it made me feel a little bit better that they didn't see me that way, it really made me think about those who do see themselves that way. The people who really truly think that God in the world hates them. And maybe you've never said, does God hate me? But maybe you felt like life was unusually heavy. Like the setbacks weren't random. Like the struggle had your name on it. And in those moments, it doesn't feel theological. It feels personal. It feels like rejection, like punishment, like you're being singled out. But a question that I haven't been able to shake is it that God hates you? Or is it that you haven't learned from what keeps happening? And I say that gently, not critically, because adversity is real. Hardship is real. Unfairness is real. But so is pattern. So I want to talk about that. And not from a place of self-pity or blame, but from a place of growth. Why do some people go through repeated adversity and evolve, while others go through repeated adversity and stay stuck? Why do some people use hardship as fuel and others let it become their identity? And how do you know the difference in your own life? There are seasons when things stack up. You lose a job, a relationship ends, money gets tight, your health shifts, friendships fracture. And when enough happens in a row, it stops feeling circumstantial and it feels cosmic. You start interpreting events as meaning something about you. But what I've noticed is two people can experience repeated hardship and walk away with completely different outcomes. One becomes hardened, the other becomes wiser. One becomes resentful, while the other becomes reflective. Same struggle, different posture. Adversity by itself doesn't transform you. Participation does. Some people survive things, while other people survive things and ask, what is this revealing? Where was I ignoring red flags? What boundaries did I abandon? What did I tolerate that I shouldn't have? What belief about myself keeps recreating this? That's uncomfortable work. It's much easier to say, why does this always happen to me? But that question keeps you powerless. The better, though harder question is, what am I meant to see here? Now, I want to be clear. Not everything is your fault. There are systems. There is injustice. There is trauma. There are things that truly happen to you. This is not about blame. This is about agency. Once something has happened, once the loss is real, once the disappointment has landed, you still get to decide, Do I let this define me or develop me? Because I've seen people repeat the same relational patterns for years and call it bad luck. I've seen people stay in environments that drain them and call it fate. I've seen people ignore every warning sign and call the outcome God testing them. At some point, growth requires ownership. Not shame, but ownership. The people who grow from adversity tend to do a few things consistently. They reflect instead of react. They adjust instead of accuse. They grieve instead of deny. They seek feedback instead of validation. And they change behavior instead of just changing scenery. They don't waste their suffering. And that's the key. You can't always avoid hardship, but you can avoid wasting it. Sometimes life feels unfair, quite frankly, because it is. But sometimes it feels personal because it's persistent. And persistence usually signals a lesson unlearned. Not always, but often. If you keep encountering the same type of relationship, the same financial chaos, the same professional disrespect, that's data. And data isn't condemnation, it's information. There's another layer to this that I don't think we talk about enough. Sometimes it's not that you're stuck. It's that you didn't do what you needed to do when you had the chance. And life will not let you keep building on a faulty foundation forever. There's a concept in architecture called controlled demolition. When a structure is no longer safe, when it's unstable, when the integrity is compromised, you don't patch it forever. You don't paint over the cracks. You don't pretend the foundation isn't shifting. You plan the collapse. You clear the entire area. And you bring the whole thing down strategically so something stronger can be rebuilt. And sometimes that's what's happening in your life. It's not punishment, it's demolition. You stayed too long. You ignored the red flags. You kept negotiating with misalignment. You tolerated what you knew was eroding you. And instead of making the difficult decision yourself, life made it for you. The job ended. The relationship collapsed. The opportunity fell through. Not because you're cursed, but because you were comfortable in something that was no longer meant to hold you. And here's the part people don't like. Sometimes you have to blow that shit up. Sometimes you have to end it. Walk away. Disrupt the pattern. Make the call. Say the thing. Risk the discomfort. Because if you don't initiate the demolition, life eventually will. And it will feel more violent when you didn't choose it. Controlled demolition is intentional loss for long-term stability. It's grief with purpose. It's destruction that creates space. And when you understand that, you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you start asking, what am I still trying to hold together that needs to come down? And this is also why I struggle with a phrase that people use all the time. God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. While I understand the heart behind it, I know it's meant to encourage, to affirm strength. It's meant to say you can handle this. But if I'm being honest, I struggle with that phrase because sometimes it removes reflection. If every hardship is framed as proof that you're strong, then you never have to ask whether you contributed to the pattern. It can turn every repeated struggle into a badge of honor. And not every repeated struggle is a battle assigned. Some are cycles unbroken and boundaries that weren't enforced. Some are decisions delayed and red flags that were ignored. If I tell myself that every setback is just because I'm strong, I don't have to examine my own choices. I don't have to confront what I tolerated. I don't have to ask whether I'm rebuilding the same house on the same cracked foundation. And that's dangerous because growth requires more than resilience. It requires awareness. I want to be clear though, there are absolutely battles in life that you did not choose. There are illnesses you didn't cause, losses you didn't deserve, doors that closed without warning. But even in those moments, the power isn't in being labeled strong. The power is in how you respond. Strength isn't proven by how much you survive. It's revealed by how much you're willing to examine. Sometimes the most mature thing you can say isn't, I'm strong enough to handle this. It's, what is this teaching me? Because I don't believe God is sitting somewhere assigning difficulty based on emotional endurance. I believe we live in a world where things happen. And maturity is learning to discern what was outside of me and what keeps repeating because I won't change. And that's not shame, that's stewardship. Instead of asking, why does God hate me? Maybe the better questions are, what is this refining in me? What is this exposing? What capacity is this building? And who will I be able to help because I survived this? Because I've also seen something else. The people who choose to learn from adversity often become the most grounded, empathetic, impactful people in the room. Their pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms. They stop asking, why me? And start saying, use me. And that shift changes everything. So if we're not asking, why does God hate me? And we're not hiding behind, I must just be strong enough for tough battles, then what are we asking? We're asking better questions. For example, if you keep losing jobs, instead of saying, why does this happen to me? You might ask, is there a skill gap I need to close? Am I in environments that don't align with my strengths? Do I need mentorship instead of motivation? Or am I mistaking potential for preparation? If you keep experiencing relationship disappointment, am I choosing familiarity over compatibility? Am I ignoring incompatibility because I don't want to start over? Do I confuse intensity with intimacy? And what boundary do I consistently abandon? If you're constantly financially strained, do I actually have a spending problem? Or am I undercharging? Am I avoiding uncomfortable money conversations? Or do I lack structure and not opportunity? And if it's something you truly did not cause, illness, grief, unexpected loss, the reframe isn't blame. It's, who am I becoming in this? What capacity is this building? How can I steward my healing well? Who will I be able to sit with because I've survived this? Growth doesn't always mean preventing the next storm. Sometimes it means strengthening the house. And sometimes it means finally deciding to move out of the flood zone. Reframing isn't denial, it's responsibility. It's refusing to let hardship be random when it can be instructive. And it's powerful because it gives you your agency back. Not everything is your fault, but something is always within your influence. And that's where transformation lives. If you're in a season where it feels like life is targeting you, I want you to pause before you decide it's punishment. Pause before you make it personal in a way that removes your power. Ask what it's teaching. Ask where you still have agency. Ask what this moment is trying to build in you. Because suffering doesn't automatically elevate you. Reflection does. Hardship doesn't automatically transform you. Participation does. And if something keeps happening, it may not be because you're hated. It may be because you're being shaped. And shaping isn't always gentle. Sometimes it looks like loss. Sometimes it looks like redirection. Sometimes it looks like controlled demolition. But shaping, when you lean into it, produces clarity. It produces strength with wisdom. It produces discernment. And even if you don't have the answers right now, awareness is a beginning. Honesty is a beginning. Even being willing to ask better questions is a beginning. So the question isn't just, why does this keep happening to me? The deeper question is, are you participating in the shaping? And I want you to sit with that this week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Pretty Intentional. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment. It truly helps the show grow. You can follow me at Candice OBD on all platforms, and be sure to follow Pretty Intentional as well. And remember, being intentional isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up for yourself and your journey. I'll see you next time.